It's a pleasure to be here, and I was asked to speak to research investments that NIAID and our NIH, other institute partners at the NIH are making to address or to improve the success of treatment as prevention interventions in the future. So I first am just going to give a sort of a high-level overview of two large clinical trials that are currently ongoing, one domestic and one global in sub-Saharan Africa, that represent our largest investments from a clinical trial standpoint in the concept of treatment of HIV as prevention. And the first one is HPTN 065, which is otherwise known as TLC+. This is a trial that is ongoing and is being conducted by the HPTN, the HIV Prevention Trials Network, which is funded by NIAID. These slides were, I borrowed them from Wafa El-Sadir, who's one of the PIs for HPTN 065, and the other co-PI is Bernie Branson, who's here in our audience, and so if you want detailed questions on how this is designed, he's probably available later for questions. The purpose of 065 is to evaluate the feasibility of enhanced community-level HIV test and linkage to care in the United States, and there's two large intervention communities, Washington, D.C. and the Bronx in New York City, and the outcome at a surveillance level in those communities will be compared to comparison communities where the interventions aren't occurring, which is Chicago, Miami, Philadelphia, and Houston. This schematic represents the general design of the TLC Plus study, HPTN 065. The concept, of course, is that if you promote testing through structural interventions that mobilize the community to get tested and then successfully link positive individuals to care, enroll them and retain them in care and initiate antiretroviral therapy, help them maintain virologic suppression, you can therefore prevent ongoing transmission in the community and perhaps see a difference in HIV surveillance statistics with successful implementation of these strategies, reducing HIV incidence in the community. But just in what you just heard me said, there's a lot of key points in that cascade, from testing, promoting testing, accepting testing, linking to care, successfully getting people to take therapy and maintain virologic suppression. There's a lot of steps there that people have identified as being challenges to the whole implementation of this test and treat strategy overall. So HPTN 065 was designed to test the feasibility of some of these strategies, and on this really complicated schematic here, I've tried to show at the key points where the experimental design of 065 will test the feasibility of some of these strategies. So first of all, you'll see on the right panel there, the linkage to care after somebody has been identified as positive in either of the two experimental communities. They can be randomized to either getting a financial incentive to link to care, or, and the comparison condition would be standard of care linkage to care. The next feasibility test that involves a randomization in the experimental design would be testing the prevention for positives intervention, which is basically a counseling intervention on adopting healthier sexual behaviors to prevent ongoing transmission and maintaining care. So that's the Care Plus strategy for positives, or compared to standard of care alone, and there's an individual level randomization there. And then last on the rightward set of panels there, the last feasibility intervention being tested is whether an individual will be more likely to maintain virologic suppression if they get a financial incentive for doing so. So an individual could be randomized to financial incentive or to standard of care, with the outcome being a durability of virologic suppression after starting therapy. So again, HPTN 065 started about 3 years ago. It's expected to conclude data collection activities within the next year, and we'll learn, hopefully, results on the success of some of these, the feasibility of these interventions in the care setting. So that's the domestic US-based prevention trial that's ongoing. HPTN 071, or the POP-ART trial, is another very large randomized controlled trial that tests the concept of whether or not HIV treatment, test and treat at the community level, can result in a reduction in HIV incidence. Again, shown on this slide, this is a very large trial, so there's a lot of partnerships and collaborations involved. The institutes at the NIH that sponsored are NIAID, NAID, and NIMH, but there are a large number of other partners, and the PI is Dr. Richard Hayes at Imperial College in London. So, and these slides were borrowed from him. So the hypothesis of HPTN-071 is that universal voluntary HIV testing with appropriate combination prevention offered to everybody who tests HIV negative, and then in addition to that, immediate antiretroviral therapy for those testing positive can have a substantial impact on HIV incidence at the population level. Now, some people think that we already know that scientifically that this will have a positive impact at the community level, and we need to make better investments in simply implementing these strategies. But I think from the standpoint of local ministries of health, it's still unknown whether a community-level universal test and treat intervention can be delivered with high acceptability, high levels of uptake, and high levels of adherence in order to have the desired impact across entire communities compared to the individual level impact that was demonstrated in HPTN-052. So some people think that this is an important question to still rigorously address with a randomized controlled trial. There's also uncertainty regarding a number of other specific parameters, the potential impact of HIV-related stigma on individuals seeking care, being linked to care, and then staying in care. There's, in many settings, the possibility of overload of health services, and then, of course, the possibility of sexual risk-taking at an individual level that could offset any benefit of a universal test and treat strategy. And also concerns related to drug toxicity and evolving drug resistance in specific low-resource settings are also matters of concern that will be described in this study as data collection activities commence. The costs and the benefits that would be needed for health planners to make reliable estimates of cost effectiveness overall are also important. So for all these reasons, HPTN-071 is a trial that is being supported and is ongoing. So shown on this slide is the general trial design. It's a 3-arm cluster randomized trial that is being conducted in communities in 2 different countries. There's 21 clusters, 12 in Zambia and 9 in South Africa on the Western Cape. There's about a population of 50,000 in each cluster. About 50% of those communities are adults of mature sexual age, so they're the targeted individuals in those communities. And then the incidence, or the main outcome for the study, will be measured in a population cohort that is representative of the community that will be conducted, that will be recruited, and for each arm that'll be about 2,500 individuals in each cluster. And then they'll be followed at 1, 2, and 3 years. So data collection activities began in last quarter of 2013. They're ongoing now, and the study is expected to conclude data collection activities in about 2017. So the conditions are Arm A, full POP-ART, population ART, so that includes home-based testing and treatment of everybody who's offering treatment to everybody who's identified to be infected. Arm B is home-based testing with antiretroviral therapy offered according to national guidelines in the communities in these studies right now. That's at a CD4 cell count of 350 generally. And then Arm C is the standard of care where testing occurs in facilities according to current guidelines, and treatment is offered again according to national standards. The background prevention services that are offered in all these communities are voluntary male circumcision, as well as standard STI screening and testing and condom distribution. So that represents the standard of care that is part of the strategy in all communities. So that's the pop art trial, which is a enormous investment for us and for the partners that I put on the slide, that I listed on the slide earlier. I'm also going to just tell you what ideas or what innovations the NIH and NIAID in particular wants to see research being done in order to develop new technologies for therapy that will improve our ability to treat populations. And one of these is a program announcement that was recently released calling for innovation in sustained release of antivirals for treatment or for prevention of HIV. We think that this is necessary in treatment because there are always going to be people that have adherence challenges that longer-acting antivirals could address and perhaps improve upon their chance of reaching virologic suppression. We think that for prevention, single long-acting antivirals also hold promise. So, and we think that technologies such as depot formulations and nanocrystal formulations of existing drugs or new drugs can address this gap in our therapeutic and prevention armamentarium. So that's one initiative that NIH would like to see developed in order to improve our chances of success in reversing the AIDS epidemic in the future. Another initiative that has recently been published, Increased Knowledge and Innovative Strategies to Reduce HIV Incidence, or I Know projects. We'd like people to develop innovative strategies for improving the identification of people who are unaware of their HIV positive status and link them to HIV testing, treatment, and prevention interventions. This could include home-based testing at regular intervals for people who are at high risk. This could include developing and testing, cell phone-based strategies with microfluid chips in it, for example, for identifying HIV positive testing status. This could also involve developing and examining feasibility and acceptability of novel combination prevention strategies, both biomedical and behavioral, to decrease onward transmission in people who are identified as being positive. So this is an initiative that is out there and we expect to be open for the next several years that will hopefully help us address this crucial problem of identifying people as positive as soon after they become positive and linking them to care. And then lastly, another tool that I think we desperately need in order to roll out treatment as prevention is better HIV incidence assays that have very good specificity and that can be used to describe HIV incidence in populations using cross-sectional samples. This has been something that we've been promoting and funding for years now. There's been some advances in this area. For example, Oliver Leindecker and Tom Quinn have developed algorithms that can describe incidence in different populations with different clades, but they involve drawing multiple specimens of blood, so you have to have CD4 cell count, viral load, and antibody types of tests in order to categorize people as recently infected. And we'd like to see more technology and development in this area because we think it will improve ministries of health ability, for example, to know their epidemic and to know where to target resources over time. Thank you.